ZGB's afternoon time now. 2 minutes moving down past the hour of 5 o'clock. And as promised at 5, we do have the Budget Support Missions interview, which will be led by our executive producer from ZGB's newsroom, Brother James White Jr. So at this time, we head into the next studio.
Okay, good afternoon, good evening, good night in some cases to our listeners and the viewers to this interview, an all-important interview. I say important because the Government of Montserrat has been having discussions with the United Kingdom Government's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, on the island's 2025-26 budget this week as the Budget Support Mission, BSM, convened. Now, the BSM, which was previously known as the Financial Aid Mission, allows for an agreement to be made on the budget allocation and for key discussions on the Government of Montserrat's strategic plans and progress being made on priority areas. This afternoon, we have with us Governor, Her Excellency Sarah Tucker. We also have the Honorable Premier, Reuben Meade, with us. And of course, we have Mr. Adam Pyle with us as well from the BSM. And as protocol will have it, we'll cross over to Her Excellency, Governor Sarah Tucker, at this time to start us off.
Thank you
Your
very
Excellency.
much. Thank you, James. Good night, everybody listening. So this is my third budget support mission since I've been here as governor. And each time I think it's going to get easier. It doesn't, but it gets better. I just want to commend first the acting FS, Kenya Lee, and his team at Finance, who are actually responsible for pulling all of this together for the Minister of Finance, Premier, and working with the team at the FCDO. They've done a tremendous amount of work, as I know all public servants have, to pull all the information together. And it's really a discussion about the work that we have done here and the government has done here for Montserrat and what those aspirations are going forward and the evidence base in terms of how the funding that we receive from the UK is then spent here for ourselves in Montserrat. So it's always an interesting start. We're all very sort of nervous at the start. How is it going to go? But I think we have a new government. We have different public servants leading different aspects, and it's been a really good session from my perspective and listening to some of the real positives that are happening and the plans that are in place. So I think it's been a good few days. It's been exhausting, I know, for everybody, and we've still got more meetings tomorrow. We haven't quite finished, but I think we've packed a lot in, and I hope that all the work that's been done here to support the government, Premier Meade and his team, by the public servants will allow Adam and his team to go back to the UK and make very positive cases in terms of how we've used the funding and how we will continue to use that funding going forward. So a big thank you to everybody and for Adam and his team for coming out and being so receptive to everything that we've done. And it's my Premier and I's first one together, and I think we've done well. They might have seen both of us rolling our eyes at times if we weren't quite sure of what was going on, but we've kept up and kept engaged, and it's been a really good week, I think, for us as the collective government working together. I've really enjoyed it and being part of that team. But I'll hand to the Premier, who'll give you his view on how things were this week.
Good. Thanks very much, Governor. I want to endorse the statements which you've made in relation to the congratulations to Kenya and his team, the acting financial secretary. I think he did an excellent job in terms of pulling this thing together, and all the members from the public service who participated in the mission. I need to clarify something because I think people are of the view that we are in negotiations with the BSM. We're not in negotiations.
Discussions.
We're basically putting forward our plans and programs. They then go back to the UK and negotiate on our behalf. Okay, so I just need to get that absolutely clear. Adam and his team have been exceptional. We did something for them this week, which I'm happy that we were able to do, is that we got them stranded in Antigua for one day. And that sort of gave them an indication of some of our access issues. So, Adam, you have been able to benefit from that. But it has been a very pleasant week. it's my first BSM, but I've been through this iteration for far too long. And this mission, this current mission, was a very pleasant one. Some of the civil servants were of the view that, including some of the ministers, that they thought it would have been more intense and more difficult. But because of the participation of Adam and his team, they made us feel so much more comfortable that we were able to make our presentations to them. And we will rely on them to go and make the negotiations in the UK on our behalf. I have to also thank Her Excellency the Governor. This is her final BSM with us. I know wherever she is going, we can call upon her.
Absolutely.
She'll be a telephone call away, because she also brings to the table a lot which quite a number of us from the outside would not recognize the importance of the work which she and her team does for the people of Montserrat. So, Governor, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Premier. I appreciate that.
For the tremendous amount of work which you have done behind the scenes. You know, of course, that when we were campaigning, we were not the best of friends. But coming into government and working with the governor, then you recognize the significance of the work which he has done and continues to do on our behalf. So that's my opening little spiel.
Yes, and I guess we'll have Adam as well.
Yeah, great. Hello, everyone. So it's been a really good, productive week so far. Just to be clear, the Governor and the Premier have been pushing us quite hard on a lot of issues. So it's not all plain sailing. And Premier said we got the real, authentic experience. We were stranded in Antigua. It's even better. Last time the Governor made me come by sea. And I went a nice shade of emerald green.
For 2 days.
For 2 days, yeah. But I'm lucky enough this is my 5th trip to Montserrat. And I love Montserrat. I love the people. I think it's a fantastic community, fully aware of all the challenges you face. But I think, sometimes we forget the good things in Montserrat. You see a lot of upheaval in the world at the moment, crime rates rising across the Caribbean. There's something very special about the very tight-knit, kind community you have here in Montserrat. But also, just pick up on what the Premier said, I'm always amazed by the public service of Montserrat. It's amazing how a lot of people go above and beyond. And you have a very small government dealing with some very big responsibilities. So really impressed. We've had some really good presentations. And what I'd really like to commend, I've seen through some of the presentations in the public service, is people thinking outside the box, people thinking radically. How do we move Montserrat forward? And I think I really just want to bring out here is this is different from the past. This is not me and my team sat in London and Whitehall telling Montserrat what they're doing. You have an elected government here in Montserrat, and we want to empower the government to make those decisions. Nobody knows Montserrat better than Montserratians. And so you have decisions taken locally, which people are accountable for locally. I think what is quite exciting is where we can partner and do things. So we have been able to increase funding over the last couple of years only because the work the public service and politicians are doing in Montserrat to build that evidence case, just as the Governor was saying. Even today, the Premier and the Governor had me climbing up Fogarty to go and see the springs. But that's important because that's where Montserratians get their drinking water from. So that's part of a £7 million programme we're doing. But it's not because we suddenly sat there in London thinking Montserrat needs this. It's because Montserrat came to us and told us. Going to see the hospital, we've been talking about that for years. So excited that contract has been signed. That will be done. And I think what we want to do, working with the government here in Montserrat, is think about what comes next. Even if we don't have the funding available, thinking about that pipeline of projects going forward. So how do we build back, but build back better as well? Building that future for Montserrat. And just also pay tribute to the work that the MoFem, but also all of the ministries have done and putting that forward. Really, really appreciate that. And behind the scenes, we have a really good relationship. I think COVID taught us we could speak to each other remotely. But I can tell you, the governor lobbies me on a daily basis. She is not a FCDO person in Montserrat. She is a Montserrat person in the FCDO. And I just echo again what the Premier said, really going above and beyond. I know it's been with COVID and other things, it's been a challenging few years in Montserrat, but we will miss you as well.
Thank you.
Just one additional comment. This is Adam's last in his role, but it will not be his last for Montserrat, because wherever Adam goes, he will have Montserrat in his heart. And if we need to call on a resource, we know that Adam will be there. So again, Adam, thanks very much for the years of service which you have provided for the people of Montserrat.
Thank you, Premier. The first time I came to Montserrat, I had hair.
I was 6 foot.
Well, the first time you came to Montserrat, I had black hair.
Thank you very much, Premier. And before you, Adam, thank you very much. And we'll be posing some questions. Keola Green, my colleague on Radio Montserrat, on my left, and Malika Mackenzie Weeks, Aliogana Express on my right. And Keola, you want
you're feeling somewhat like Jesus.
I'm not going down that road. Malika, you want to start? Okay, sure. You want? Okay. Yeah, they always want me to start. I don't know why. So I throw this out to any one of you. What were some of the specifics that were discussed? Honorable Premier, you want to start?
No, I can't go into specifics, but we have put forward a program for the FCDO to consider. It covers a wide range of thematic areas. And we're hoping that within that wide range of thematic areas that we will be in a position to be able to get some assistance.
So what are some of these, what is included in the thematic areas that you're talking about?
Finance, agriculture, health, tourism, access, name it. Cuts across the entire operations of the public service.
And you were able to get Adam to put these into this program that you spoke of?
No, it's not a matter of getting them to do anything. What we're simply doing is providing submissions to them. But again, part of your submission has to be backed by data. If you don't have the data, then it's pointless making a submission. You need to know what the outcomes of your submissions ought to be. So it's not that you want something. It has to be on the basis of need. You see a problem, how can we ask them to help us to solve that problem? And having solved that problem, what can we do to ensure that it is going to augur well for the development of Montserrat?
James, just to build on that.
Okay. I was going to ask you to follow up on it, Adam, because there was a specific question that I had to ask.
Just very quickly, nothing is static, but I think what we've been having discussions with the Premier about is what works well, what hasn't worked, and we have to be honest in a public service across the world. UK and Montserrat, we have to change with the times. Technologies are coming in, different ways of doing things, but also just you look at some sectors have worked really well. So we've seen improvements in the health and the excitement happening around a hospital, but that's what, the UK has provided the funding and the technical assistance. But what's been really exciting is the health teams here in Montserrat have really owned it. They've driven it. They've thought about how you have better primary care, how you use the data. That has worked really well in that relationship with UK Health Security Agency. And we've been working with the Premier and the Governor thinking, how do we recreate that in other areas? How do we recreate that in health, in education, in policing, building on what works well. But a key thing here is how we're kind of tapping into that expertise in Montserrat and the public service, because it does exist.
And just to build on that as well, I think there's a myth that this is about we in Montserrat ask for X and we get Y, and then but it is about that partnership, and one of the things is about the capacity and capability, and one of the beauties, I suppose, people still find it challenging, this FCDO rather than DFID FCO and things, but one of the beauties is that we use Adam and his team really as the Cabinet Office for us to reach back across other government departments, and we've seen an increase in that over the last few years. And one of the things that Premier and Ministers are talking about is where else can we tap into that, because often it's not just about funding, it's about capacity, it's about technology or technical assistance, and we've seen that in the water and sewage areas, and we're seeing that in health, and we're starting to do that in education, we do it in safeguarding. So how can we make sure that we bring expertise in to help, so that we can develop those skills here, so that we can deliver that ourselves? I think that's it's all about being self-sustainable, and how do we do that? And so it's not just about funding, it's about capability. And again, just to echo on the health side, where we've seen that really growing, is the relationships are built on how can we work together to find the solutions. And as Premier said, it's all about the data that says we've got a problem, how can we work together? And I think that's the beauty of the way I think this week has gone, is that the majority of people are working together in terms of, if we can do this bit, can you do that? And how do we find a solution? It's not a list of problems, it's a list of solutions, and then how do we reach them? So I think that's really how it's been. But yeah, it'd be for Premier and his government to decide what they do with it or when it comes in. Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, you see, I was looking, Adam, at the fact that you said that what our needs are. And we know that we have the port, for instance, the new hospital, the sewage that Your Excellency spoke of, and what is working well, and how can we build on that, getting the additional resources, not only finances. I just wanted to zero in on those things like that. So and then you brought it out.
Yeah.
So
and expand it out, hopefully.
Yes. Yeah. So Keola.
Well, just to piggyback on James's question, specifically Premier Meade, in terms of infrastructure projects that might fall under this program that you have proposed, are you in a position to tell us a bit about that, or give us at least one?
Hospital. No, we've signed the contract for the hospital. You have the utilities program, which looks at sewage, water and sewage, and electricity. If you were to look at when you go home, how many times in the past 3 months has your electricity gone off? Okay, so it seems as though the transition has taken place, but we do not recognize it. And that's because, again, of the support which has been provided by HMG. Winair will be coming in here and doing their test flights next week. It is again because of the support provided by HMG. For me as an economist, I look at efficiencies. How do we create efficiencies in our expenditure? And we have to, across all departments, look at operational efficiencies. How can we do things better? How can we involve the private sector in what we're doing in terms of developing the country? So one of the things which I would say is that we must not see Montserrat as an aid addict. Okay? Forgive the phrase of aid addict. Yes, HMG is going to provide some support, but we also have to look at other avenues for developing the country. And we're getting the support from HMG. We were supposed to have had an investment mission in February. We had to push that back for a few months because things did not fall in place. So therefore, we may have it later on in the year. So it's a combination of all of those things which makes us a success.
Okay, and so sticking on that topic, Premier, what additional steps do you think needs to be taken to, drive Montserrat towards a more economic independence? Also for you too as well, Adam.
Attitudes is one, very, very important. We have to adopt the attitude of being willing to change the way we do things. Too often we're stuck in, this is the way we're accustomed to doing it, and you're not willing to change. We have to change that mindset. The second element is we have to stop operating in silos. So not because education has a project that other ministries and departments are not participating. And they need also to understand what is happening within those departments. So for example, if you look at the hospital project, it will require an across government support to ensure that the hospital project is implemented successfully. We can't just leave it to health. We have to look at built, we have to look at Office of the Premier, we have to look at agriculture. All of those departments have to come together to ensure that this thing happens. And that's just a simple example of what we're looking at. On the private sector side, we then have to ensure that we do the right things to encourage and cause the private sector to be willing to make the investments to help the government to move things forward.
And just on that, things like recently the FATF assessment that was done and the Attorney General and the team there that have done that helps us as a country in terms of saying that we're a good place to invest and that you can actually bring your money here safely. And we've got our, anti-money laundering and terrorist financing protections in place. That helps, things like that. And then I think on the trade mission side of things, Premier and I met with UK Export Finance when we're in the UK and making sure that we're supporting where we can here, but also asking the UK government to make sure that financing options are available and encouraging, UK investors here, because that's what the UK government can do, but also using the connectivity that we've all got across the region and across the world to make sure that's ready. And I think it's really interesting, and I just commend here. I think that lots of places where you've set something up to the trade mission, you would say, well, we've booked it for 3 weeks' time. We're going to go ahead, regardless of the fact that we're not in the right place for that. But actually, with Premier, we've agreed we step back and we get everything ready, and that's a much more mature way of looking at things and progressing in the steps, so that when you do go out to the trade, you're ready. And so, and so we've managed to get UK funding rediverted to support the Premier and his team on the work they want to do there. So it's that partnership approach and really looking at how can we get ourselves in the right place, and then we'll continue to nag Adam and his team to make sure that we access the funding that's available for investors, because it's not easy to get investment this day and age. So we need to also help that side as much as we can. And UK Export Finance are there to help British investors, but the other way too. So lots of development, I think, on that side.
Yeah, and I for me, it's balancing ambition and getting the basics right. We should be ambitious for Montserrat, but I think it's getting the fundamentals right. We've been talking about energy, so the UK government has been able to, over the last couple of years, buy 2 new generators, but we're working with the Government of Montserrat thinking about what the next phase is coming after that. Montserratians deserve clean drinking water. So, and to know that the environment's being looked after with the sewage farms and stuff. So, getting that right. So, getting the fundamentals right, not only because they're good basic public services, but that, building on the Premier's point, that builds the environment in which you can do economic growth. You have to get that right before that happens.
And just to wrap on this, you also need to have the management in place, and not just the project management, but management all the way up to the executive.
So patience is probably another thing that we need to learn, to do it in stages, but increment, but make sure that we're recognising that we're making that progress, because often we shoot for the big project at the end without recognising all the good work. So on the hospital project, Margaretson is done, and project managers in place, and lots of things there. So it is steps towards the end goal, and we often forget that we're actually on a journey. So I think perhaps patience. I don't have much at all, as Adam knows. I'm always nagging him, but perhaps we can all learn a bit of that.
Long-term plans. Are there any long-term plans for gradually reducing aid reliance for Montserrat? Because we're talking about a lot of what we're going to do coming up next. But then we are reliant on our aid. So
I would like to look at what we had previously, where we had a 2020 vision, which should have and that was 2010 to 2020, where had things continued along that path, we should have been able to shake HMG's hands and say, thank you very much. We do not need any more recurrent support from you. We can manage on our own. Things have changed, and therefore we're looking at the next 10 years to be in a position to say the same thing to them. Thank you very much, we can manage on our own. And this will come with the private sector development program, getting ourselves able to wash our own face. Yeah, as we say in the economic terms, you wash your own face. This gives you the opportunity to do things for yourself, because you start getting non-tax revenue. And once you start getting non-tax revenue, it makes it a lot easier on the population. That also leads to another factor, which is the growth of the population. You create it, the population will come. And once you can create that wealth, then lots of things will fall into place.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, we've spoken about the hospital and the work to improve healthcare. Like, lots of Montserratians say that they have concerns about education. You can see many people say that in different bits of the UK as well, but it's like making Montserrat a place that people can see that they can build a family and stay, or that their children would like to come back to. So, and there are so many good things here. There are good people in the public sector who are working really hard. It's creating an environment where they can excel.
The other one which we need to look at, and I'll just mention it very quickly. Currently, we're sending patients all the way to Trinidad. And we're working with HMG now to create a relationship once again with Guadeloupe and Martinique, which are very, very much closer, along with additional medevac capabilities to be able to get persons out more readily. And these are things which are happening, but they take time, they take negotiations, but they will happen.
And it goes back, I think Premier said about, the efficiencies and things. As we find those efficiencies through different ways of working, it opens up new opportunities. So as we're working together with Guadeloupe and Martinique, then we're also promoting Montserrat. All those things come together. And it is about creating an environment that people want to come and live in. So, more going on, more social things. We need private sector to do that. And it's a bit of chicken and egg to start off with. I think the other thing, people need to be a bit bolder in terms of, if you've got an idea to develop something, have a go if you can, or and there's government support there, I think, for some new businesses and things. Because if you try and fail, you've tried. If you don't try, you'll never get anywhere. So there is a bit of braveness, I think, for us all to build that economy going forward and start to try new things. And I know certainly that the Premier and his government are encouraging that. So I hope that more people will, there's some fantastic creativity. We've got some brilliant people that work on IT that can produce lots of things, and we just need to support them to make sure that goes across, a bit wider than here. And I know Premier is the only one sitting here without any paper in front of him, and one here, but he's nagging for us all not to, stop printing and use digital technology much more. And I think that's where we could really be at the forefront in the region in terms of doing that. And because we are a small environment, and that's a real economy boom that we could bring. So it's just looking for those niche ideas and how we can support. And again, if there's technical capability that we need to bring in to support people, then we can do that.
Kiola?
So I have two questions coming in from Discover Montserrat. That's Nerissa Golden. She's not here at the moment. The first one is to Premier Meade. Are there any projects for private sector development which was proposed?
No, we don't need to propose projects for private sector development to Adam's team. They're dealing with the public sector goods. Our private sector projects will go to the private sector. So, for example, the trade mission is being handled by the DMA, who are assisting us in putting together that team coming out to visit us.
Okay. And her second question is, Miss for Adam. Have you been given a clear picture of the issues with education and the lack of teachers? Is this something that can receive priority action before the start of the new school year?
Yeah, so we spent time with the education team. I've previously been to a few of the schools. There's something, there are many things which are important in public services we deliver, but education has to be a top priority because it's the future of this island. We're working with the team now thinking about how we could build partnerships with local authorities in the UK, but also make sure that we can advertise jobs across our social media networks and civil service jobs, etc., to make sure that we're getting that extra reach. So we're keen to help wherever we can. So just building on something that the Premier said, I'll just also back to the previous question. One of the things that we have done working with the Government of Montserrat is where we have a capital projects, making sure that they specifically have scope for local contractors of varying size. So I mentioned that we climbed up into the springs today, got all muddy in the rain, but there was a small local contractor doing that work. That's really important, that everyone has an opportunity to benefit from the spending.
Okay, and this question from me now. I know back in 2013, I was still young, going to school. Premier Meade said that geothermal is the game changer for Montserrat. And so sticking on energy, tell us about the UK's...
I hate a good memory.
Tell us about UK's funding for the geothermal project. I know that if not this year or last year, the UK government would have committed some funding for the geothermal project in Grenada. So tell us about Montserrat.
Yeah, so we continue to make sure that funding is available, and I know the Government of Montserrat prioritised the funding to keep the wells maintained. And there's some research going on at the moment looking at how mining the brine for minerals could be used for Montserrat's benefit, and that belongs to Montserrat, that resource. Do we have the funding available at the moment for geothermal energy? No, I don't have that magic pot of money, but is it a possibility? Yes, and we're continuing to talk to the Premier and his team about how we can take that forward. So can't give you an honest answer now that we could make it happen, but no one's given up on it.
Okay. And it was stated that Montserrat has graduated from overseas development aid.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean, and how does it impact the level of financial support we get from the UK?
Yeah, so ministers in the UK have been very clear that whilst Montserrat is graduating from eligibility to receive official development aid, that doesn't mean we're going to let Montserrat fall off a funding cliff. You have a commitment from our ministers in the UK, and you've got a new government in the UK who are very excited about working with Montserrat and the other overseas territories. But they've been very clear that we will continue the funding for Montserrat. So in all honesty, it's an accounting problem for me and my team in government, but we are working really hard. And I have a Montserrat team who work specifically on Montserrat. They're here with me, Mark, Shelby and Hugh, and there's others back at home. But I can tell you that they are constantly talking to their colleagues in the Government of Montserrat every day, and they're building up those good relationships, knowing what extra bits of funding they need in specific projects. But as the Premier said, it's not all about money, it's about technical support quite often. So working with them, and there's a really good working relationship. And I just want to say thank you for the public service for making us feel so welcome.
Just on the order, we haven't yet graduated. We will graduate next year, so we haven't yet. So we're still getting official overseas aid at the moment, but that will change. And as Adam said, that's an accounting issue. So it's Treasury funding as opposed to anything else. But we'll leave him to deal with that.
No pressure.
Please.
But you're saying additional to that, and I think I need to reiterate this. Everything is data driven.
Yeah.
So we need to ensure that we have the data to support any projects which we're putting forward. If we have a lacuna in terms of the data gap, then we will have a difficulty. It is not just, as some persons say, we have a first call. Yes, we may have a first call, but we also have to justify the call.
Yeah.
So a project document has to be written, a project proposal has to be written, a case has to be made, and again, it comes back to being supported by data. If you don't have the data, Adam can't help us much.
Yeah.
So a good example of that is the new CT scanner and the mammography machine at the hospital. There was a case put forward by the team, which was not only is it easier to have these scans on island, but it's better public health. You can do scans to do preventative healthcare, but also you're saving money and not sending people abroad. Maybe you'll get health tourism to Montserrat. People coming to use these scanners and create training opportunities. But it's that, as the Premier says, that case was built up. The evidence base was there, so that really helped us to go and get the funding.
Okay, and since we're short on time, I'll have to pick my most important questions. So the final one coming from me, given that you have a first-hand experience of our access, how easy or how difficult do you see it going back to make a case for improvements to our access?
So I go back to what we said before. Montserrat and all small island communities around, we have to think radically. We can't just keep doing the same things. We're really supportive of the trial going on with the Twin Otters and with Winair. So let's see how that goes. But I think let's think about what operators are out there, what the options are, what are the links, where else Montserrat could link up with, and we're supportive to helping the government on that.
Okay, this question specifically is for Premier Meade. And you mentioned about thematic areas going into this program that you're giving to Adam to take back to negotiate on your behalf. I'm thinking about the Sustainable Development Plan and what part does it play in those thematic areas going forward.
The Sustainable Development Plan is not yet completed, but we're reworking what we have, and that will play a major part next year. Okay, we need to recognize a couple of things. We're 3 months old as a government. We had Christmas, we had JMC, we had Baku, all coming together. So we have been out of country and we've been doing other things and trying to get our feet under the table. But by next year, we'll be in a much better position to put forward that program. In the meantime, government is continuous and we're building on what we met and improving on some of those things. Mm-hmm. So yes, the thematics are coming out, but we are working in the best interest of ensuring that we get the best for the people of this country.
Malaika?
Yes, my final question. Special needs. I think it's a big problem on the island. And yes, we are talking budget, but you also talk about intervention. I know the UK has a robust plan in how they deal with special needs. What are some of the plans that you see happening for us here on Montserrat in terms of that?
Yeah, I mean, so we're spending a lot of time with the relevant ministers on this. It's a really hard one because it's special needs. It's about education. It's not just about funding it. It's also about a cultural change, and it's about how we. Yeah, I think I look back when I went to school and how I was treated at school, how my daughters are now treated. It's night and day, and how we create that and better teaching. I think we need to bring out the very best, and the teaching staff are working really hard, but make sure that they're equipped. They got the right training. We've been working up to buddy up social services, but also hopefully on education with our counterparts in the UK with Suffolk County Council. And I think sometimes we, the UK government, shouldn't really get in the way of that. What actually works really well, say, with the social services, when they buddy up with their practitioner counterparts in Suffolk, they can talk to someone who knows how to deal with a case, who can give advice. For me, that's quite exciting because it's not just also a one-way relationship. It's also people in sort of rural communities can learn from Montserrat's experience of how they do things. So building those partnerships across a wide range, but particularly in special educational needs, I'd really like that.
But I'll just add one other element. Most of us think of the UK as London, Birmingham, the major cities.
Yeah.
We do not recognize that there are outlying communities that are larger than Montserrat. When there's a medical intervention, they need to move them from wherever that outlying community is to where the specialist medical attention is provided, which sometimes is longer than it takes for us to move someone from Montserrat to, say, Guadeloupe or Martinique. The other one is in relation to special needs. They have the same challenges in their rural communities. We tend to look at the cities, but we do not look at what's happening in their rural communities as well. We're hoping to learn a lot from how the UK handles some of these special needs. We also have persons, Montserratians, who are skilled, qualified, and capable of assisting us. And we do have persons who are saying, we are willing to come and help you during the summer period or during vacation period, where we'll put on special clinics. The same thing as it relates to the visiting medical specialists, where we're hoping to revamp that program and get it up to speed so that we will have medical interventions on a regular basis, covering the whole spectrum of the medical issues.
And I think, with special needs, it's not just in education, it's actually throughout somebody's life. So from, helping parents when they've got newborns, and how do we get them assessed, and how do we then help on that journey? So there's a whole raft of work that's going on there in terms of, say, with Suffolk, but also with general education, and then with some NGOs, and we need to try and get more NGOs to come and work here. I think the other thing, the Minister of Education is going to the Education Forum in the UK in May, which is where, work with the Education Ministry in the UK, but also then has meetings being set up for her around all of the aspects of education. So that will also enable her to access at a ministerial level and some of her officials at official level different aspects of that and tap into it. And then again, it's what expertise can we bring in. So we've got some support from the UK funding 3 different posts for us, one in police, one in education, and one in social services on sort of safeguarding, which is also part of that when you've got a high propensity of send environment. So we need to make sure they're in place, and we can perhaps see if we can do the same to get more specialists in to work with ours here. And we have, as Premier says, we've got some fantastically well qualified people here that can already do a lot of that work. We just need to put the framework in place for them to be able to deliver. So certainly that's this government's ask of the DG and I to make sure we get that in place for them. So we will work really quickly with the Minister and Premier to make sure that's done.
And just turning out his head slightly, just to plea actually to the community here, just to challenge ourselves about how we think about this issue. So, me personally, I grew up, I'm dyslexic. I was ashamed of it, and I was angry with myself. I couldn't do certain things. It's taken me a long time to cope with that and realise actually I'm good at some things, bad at other things. But I think as a community, you need to come together and think about how we treat each other, how we recognise people have different strengths and skills, and how we support each other. So I think there needs to be a community conversation on this.
Yes.
Two elements, and I'm happy you introduced that. We must never be afraid to acknowledge that our children need help. We recognize that there is a problem, but sometimes we try to hide it because we don't want the community to feel our child is different. And the other one is child safeguarding, where we're making a special plea that in Montserrat we're taking child safeguarding very seriously. And that there's a zero tolerance, basically, in terms of some of the things that happen to our children. So I just want to put that out there. And final one is one in terms of health, where we must never forget that we are responsible for our own health. There are persons in our community who get medication for various ailments. The medication is free or highly subsidized. They take it home and do not use it. And then when they get sick, seriously sick, then they run to government and say, okay, we need you to spend $100,000 on us to save us. We have to take responsibility for our own health. And this is an appeal to the men in particular. We have a little thing called prostate cancer. The men are afraid, desperately afraid, to go and have themselves examined. And as we get older, it becomes more of an issue. And again, given our ethnic makeup, we tend to suffer more from prostate cancer from some other ethnic groups. So I'm reaching out to the men in our community, especially the women do their thing. And their thing is most times more intrusive than what happens to the men in terms of the interventions. Please go and get yourself checked. We're hoping to do a cancer registry. Let us do the cancer registry and participate in it. When you realize that, look, your head is hurting you a little more than it should be, check yourself and determine whether or not, well, I did not take my blood pressure medication, or I might be drinking a little too much with the blood pressure medication. Okay, so these are things which we as a community have to work on as a community. The health of a nation is the wealth of the nation, and we have to do this thing together. Thanks, Dr. Bufang. Did I do well?
I was going to say, we also have to shout at Health. They're doing their walks twice a week at the moment, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So those of us that are perhaps carrying a little post-Christmas, I include myself in that we'd rather not, then I recommend, and good for them, everybody doing it. I see Garibaldi's on there, so I had to practice last weekend, but we'll be having a go. I encourage everyone to do that.
Okay. I know I did say the final question, but I think this is my final one. Adam, to what extent, sticking on the topic of economic independence for Montserrat, how open is the UK to allowing Montserrat and other OTs to seek and receive funding from other international donors outside of the UK?
Yep. So I think actually Montserrat does actually still dip into some EU funding. Dipped into CDB funding. I know the UK contributes to the Caribbean Development Bank. Yeah, there's no bar on that. I think from my point of view, my job is to make sure that I keep banging the drum within the UK government for Montserrat. And the Premier and Governor won't let up on that, and they will keep pushing me on that. But I can't answer for other donors, but what I can do is I can make sure that the UK lives by its commitments. And I think hopefully Montserratians will see we're living by the commitments that we've made previously, hospital, port. Let's get those done, and then we can think about what else.
Yeah. It's also about bidding. Oh, sorry, Premier.
No, go on.
I was going to say it's about bidding into the funds as well. So we, at my office, sort of look and see whether there's other opportunities for people to bid in. And some of the ministries do really well. I know agriculture with an environment with Darwin, they've done really well with that. I know it's another UK fund, but it's a different revenue. And we've had funding for the Trade Mission and Magna Carta for the legal profession, and there's funds there from the Canadians, the Americans that you can. But people have to. It goes back to Premier's point. You've got to put the data in. You've got to actually write the business case. So we are going to look at trying to upskill people to be able to do that. It's a very special skill to be able to write the business cases to get them in. And there's some people on this island do it really well, and others perhaps less so. So how we can help with that, but where they are, and I guess. One of the benefits of graduating from ODA means we can bid into other funds more broadly. So where it's more challenging for Adam and his accounting problem, but it gives us more opportunity to go and do that. So we certainly flag on our Facebook page anything we see where we think people can do that, and NGOs too. So there's things there for non-government departments that can bid into, and I would encourage them to keep doing that. Yeah, or partner with the government department and get the funding together, things like that.
But because we are full members of both CARICOM and OECS, there are funding possibilities which also come through both CARICOM and OECS, which Montserrat qualifies for. So, for example, there are 3 shade houses which will be provided to Montserrat coming out of a CARICOM initiative. Okay, so that's just one. But there are several others that we will be using our regional connections to also access the funds. I don't know what's happening with USAID, so I'm not going to touch it. No, USAID is a presidential decision, and we have no authority to question it.
Yeah. So we are out of time. We have our major newscast in just a while. And I want to say on behalf of Keola and Malaika, thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you.
Honorable Premier and Adam, for coming and just giving us some feedback on the deliberations. I know you're not finished yet. You still have tomorrow. But, you know, at least we have an idea of what the discussions are.
Thanks very
So
much.
thank you very much again for stopping by.
Thank you very much.
you.
Thanks a lot.